Hi ladies, so we're going to start going through the endocrine system here, which is another word for the hormone system, so it shouldn't sound so scary. You'll know quite a lot about this already. So girls, today we're going to go through what a hormone is, know the key differences between the hormone system and the nervous system, revise the different types of glands that exist, know the main 10 endocrine glands and their products, and be familiar with some endocrine disorders as well. So first of all, girls, what hormones are. So hormones are chemicals released by an endocrine gland that cause their effect on another part of the body. Okay, so they're chemicals released by an endocrine gland that cause their effect on another part of the body. So, for example, your ovaries release the hormone estrogen that then will have an effect, for example, on your breasts, on your hips, on your hair growth, and other parts of your body. Okay, so they get transported through the bloodstream. Now, the nervous system and the hormone system differ in two very important ways. First of all, the hormone system is based on the release of chemicals from glands, and they're transported to the bloodstream, whereas nervous system involves the movement of electrical impulses across your nerves. Okay, so that leads to the hormone system being a lot slower to respond than your nervous system. Nervous system, it's an instantaneous reaction, an instantaneous response. So, for example, like a reflex. However, hormones take much longer time to actually cause their effect because they're transported across the blood, but their effects tend to be longer lasting. So, for example, the effects that occur during puberty, they don't just last a week, they last generally for the rest of your life. Okay, so hormonal effects last longer than nervous effects, and they also take longer to occur. And the two types of glands that exist, there are what are called exocrine glands and endocrine glands. So exocrine glands, an example of that will be your salivary glands in your mouth. They release materials through ducts, okay, and also some of your hormones are released through ducts as well. So they'd be exocrine glands. Then also your endocrine glands, girls, are glands that release hormones into the bloodstream. There are 10 glands that you need to, endocrine glands or hormonal glands that you need to know for leaving cert. So here's a little picture of them. I'll show you that now in bigger form. It's your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, your pineal gland, your parathyroid gland, your thyroid gland. I'm sure you've had that probably checked out with your doctor at some point in your life. Your thymus gland, your adrenal glands, pancreas, ovaries, and testes. Now, your pituitary gland, let's start off with this one, okay? It's at the very base of your brain. It's not considered part of the brain itself. It's just underneath the brain. It produces a number of different hormones that regulate other glands, okay? Such as luteinizing hormone. We've seen this in the reproductive system, and also follicle stimulating hormone. Also produces growth hormone here too. It's considered what's called a master gland because it has an effect on other different glands. Then we have, we'll come back to that in a second. Then we have the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus, girls, is just situated just above the pituitary gland here, and it links the nervous system and the endocrine system. Okay, and it releases the hormone that we have looked at in the kidneys or the excretory system called antidiuretic hormone. So your hypothalamus releases antidiuretic hormone, which has an effect on your kidneys. Then we have the pineal gland. The pineal gland releases a chemical called melatonin, a hormone that regulates patterns in our body. Now, if you travel somewhere really far, for example, certain parts of America or certain parts of Asia, you can get what's called jet lag. So to avoid that, some people buy melatonin in pharmacies or in health food shops, and they'll take it to try and help re-regulate their body systems. So melatonin is responsible for affecting your cycles. So, for example, your menstrual cycles, also your when you sleep and when you wake. Then we have your thyroid gland, girls, that releases a chemical called thyroxine. This controls our metabolism. Now, if you ever go to the doctor with for example, fatigue or tiredness, they will definitely check your iron levels, but they'll also check your thyroid levels as well, in case you've got a malfunctioning or a not working thyroid gland. And it's very easily fixed if that's the case. Then you have the parathyroids. They're either side of your thyroid gland. They release the hormone parathormone, which causes calcium to be given out from the bones. Then you have your thymus, girls. Your thymus is situated between your two lungs, just right under your sternum at your chest. This releases thymosin, which causes the white blood cells to mature. Now, this begins to break down after childhood, so your thymuses are probably still working. Mine is well gone at this stage. And the reason for that, girls, is that usually by kind of puberty, towards the end of puberty, you'll have encountered most of the types of viruses and bacteria and fungus that you'll ever have to come across. So therefore, there's less need for your white blood cells to mature. Then you have your adrenal glands. We've all experienced this if you've ever got a fright or gone on a roller coaster, okay? Releases adrenaline, which causes the fight or flight response, and they are positioned just over your kidneys. Then also we've got your pancreas. Your pancreas releases insulin, which affects our use of sugars. So remember, if your pancreas isn't working properly, you get what's called diabetes. Now, the pancreas is a gland that's an exocrine and an endocrine gland at the same time, because it releases digestive enzymes into a duct into your gallbladder, okay? So your pancreas, girls, is an exocrine gland, but it's also an endocrine gland because it releases this hormone insulin too. Now let's look at endocrine disorders. Now, first of all, for example, dwarfism. You can have dwarfism, you can have gigantism, okay? Both of those are due to either the underproduction or overproduction of the growth hormone, okay? So you can treat dwarfism by giving growth hormone from the pituitary, okay? Diabetes, girls, this is where the body does not produce enough insulin. There's two types of diabetes. Type 1 you're born with, where your pancreas stops working quite early on in your life, and you'll fail to thrive, or you'll fail to put on weight and to be able to reaching your milestones. Whereas type 2 diabetes is one which you get through your lifestyle, through putting on too much weight, not looking after your diet. It tends to occur maybe in your 50s or 60s, and it can be usually diet controlled. So if you lose the weight, if you keep your sugar down, you should be able to control it yourself. Then we've got thyroid problems as well, okay? So this can be due to the overproduction or underproduction of thyroxine, okay? So we've got two things here. We've got what's called a hypothyroid, that's where you're underproducing thyroxine, and a hyperthyroid, where you're overproducing thyroxine, okay? So this is more common, the hypothyroid. So if you go to the doctor feeling very tired, where you're putting on weight very easily, if you're just you're not feeling great, this is more than likely an underproduction of thyroxine if it's not anemia, okay? If you go to the doctor and you're losing weight, you're feeling very nervous, very anxious, you're experiencing weight loss, thinning hair, intolerance to heat, that could be because your thyroid is overproducing thyroxine. Now, the way your thyroid is controlled, girls, is it's through a feedback loop, okay? So your pituitary is constantly monitoring your levels of thyroxine, and if it notices a drop in your levels of thyroxine, it will release what's called thyroid-stimulating hormone, okay? Whereas if the levels of thyroxine are too high, it reduces the amount of thyroid-stimulating hormone that's released. So it's controlled constantly and monitored constantly by your pituitary, but sometimes this feedback loop doesn't work properly, and then you end up getting hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. Also, another thing that can affect your thyroid, girls, is the amount of iodine you take in your diet. Iodine is a material that comes in usually through seafood or through salt that you get from the sea, okay, sea-based salt. If you don't have enough iodine in your body, what can happen, girls, is you get the formation of this quite unattractive looking bulge at the front of your throat called a goiter. Goiters, I'll show you in a picture of that. There's a goiter there, okay? So a goiter would be a sign that you're not getting enough iodine in your diet, or that there's a thyroid problem. So what the doctors will usually do is they'll give you an iodine supplement, and if that doesn't work, then they'll ask you to take thyroxine. Or sometimes what they'll have to do is they'll have to irradiate part of your thyroid to stop it producing too much thyroxine if you're hyperthyroidism. So like I said, goiters can be treated by increasing iodine in the diet, such as shellfish and seafood. Now, using or abusing hormones. So there's a lot of use of hormones in IVF. So you will inject yourself with follicle stimulating hormone to try and increase the amount of follicles that you, like baby eggs essentially, that you produce in your ovaries that you can then take out and use for IVF. So IVF uses FSH to try and obviously conceive a baby. Adrenaline, if you've ever seen Pulp Fiction, adrenaline is a chemical that is used when somebody's had an overdose of a narcotic, for example, heroin. So this is something that the Gardaí around town often carry syringes of in case they find someone that has overdosed on heroin. They can inject it straight into the heart, and it should hopefully restart the heart. Then also you get what's called steroid abuse, where people take anabolic steroids to try and build up muscle, and has effects on both their physical and both their physical size, but also on their reproductive organs too. Okay, so girls, that's the endocrine system. If we just flick back to what we should have taken from that little revision there, girls. Okay, so here we go. So you should have learned what a hormone is, know the definition, know the key differences between the hormone and the nervous system, revise the different glands, so learn the glands, learn what they produce, know the master gland, very importantly, okay, and also be familiar with some endocrine disorders. So hopefully, girls, that is what you were looking for.